Okay, it's 10:03. Thank you so much for joining us today of what will be my first event from ITS. My name is Chioma Debisi, and I am the AVP CIO here at CalStateLA. And before we start, I would like to just do some land acknowledgements, acknowledging the local indigenous people of the land where CalStateLA stands, the Chumash, the Tongaf, and the Kif land, and thanking them for taking care of this land for us. So welcome to our Women in IT and Allies event series. Our vision here in ITS is to be a diverse and collaborative information technology organization that fosters an inclusive culture of excellence, exemplary customer service, and promotes student success by advancing innovative technology. And my goal is to provide a safe place for our teams to grow. And some of you might be saying, well, this is April. Women's History Month was in March. Hey, we are late to the party. And but that doesn't mean that we need a holiday to celebrate women in IT and their allies. So welcome, welcome. Allyship is a verb. It's not a one and done. It's everyone's responsibility. It's daily. It's a long life practice of empathizing with experiences of systematically disadvantaged groups, looking out for biases, and actively using one's voice and power to advance equity in all interactions. So really great thank you to our allies. Today's agenda, just introduced myself. We're going to meet Charron, and we'll have some time to ask questions. And we have a QR code for you, not a QR code. I believe you're able to send your questions through the Q&A function here on Zoom. And there's also an anonymous feature if you want to stay anonymous. But so with that said, the beautiful thing, in my opinion, in living is being able to learn from the shared experiences of others. And as I thought about this event, there was someone that kept coming, I kept circling back to, and is a woman who has dedicated her life in service and who has been able to be that voice for many in spaces where it was not designed for them to be that advocate, to be that ally, and to be that lifelong champion of others. Her name is Charron Andrus, and she is joining us today from the campus of the University of California in Berkeley. She's been with the UC system for about 11 years, serving both UC Davis Health and Berkeley campuses. She's currently the Associate Chief Information Security Office. She's also the co-founder of the Black Leadership Alliance for the UC system, and also the co-lead for the EDUCAUSE Diversity in IT Community Group. In her spare time, Charron enjoys writing. She's a published author, and who has a book of poems, Words That Are Core in the Absence of Love. So with that, I want us to say and welcome Charron to CalStateLA. Thank you, Charron, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Chioma. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm extremely excited, and I don't think I knew this was the first event, so I'm even more honored that you chose me to kick off your series. So thank you, everyone, for having me. I'm here to talk to you about career journeys, and I think that sharing, as Chioma mentioned, kind of our shared experiences and leveraging that as part of our own personal growth is an important factor. You know, a lot of times folks say, if you can't see it, you can't achieve it. And I think by showing the diverse ways that we navigate our careers and the diverse ways that folks get to leadership and what is considered successful in their careers is important, because we can clearly see that there's no one way to do it. There's no one right way or one way that someone looks or acts or goes through their career to be successful or to become a leader. And next slide, please. So as Chioma mentioned, my name is Charron Andrus. I'm an associate CISO at Berkeley. I've been here a little over 2 years. I'm going to share about my career journey a little bit later in the slides, but I did want to start off with saying a lot of times I get very surprised folks who, you know, they don't see a lot of Black women in IT, particularly in IT leadership. Even more in the security space. So it's always a little bit of a surprise. And I love that, because it's showing folks that we look different. We move through this world in a different way, but we can all get to where it is that we want to go. And I have a background in healthcare. I started off in pharmacy on the clinical side of the house. In private industry, working for pharmacy benefit management companies and healthcare companies before moving into higher ed. And so, you know, again, just that diversity of experience, that diversity of what the path actually looks like is important. I'm also an owner of a consulting group. As Chioma mentioned, I love helping women, Black women, marginalized communities, people of color, really understand what is important about who they are as people, that value that they inherently have and what they bring to whatever it is, their careers, their organizations, their communities, and then how to be successful in that without sacrificing their physical and mental health. And so that's just a little bit about me. And then we can move on to the next slide. So my career journey, like I said, it's not the traditional career journey that most folks think about when you think about technology. A lot of people think you have to go to school and study a particular subject area, get your degree in a particular area. Maybe you need some certs, maybe you need to start off in development, whatever it might be. There's this idea that it looks a certain way. And my career journey is a bit different. So like I mentioned, I started off in pharmacy. I actually worked when I was in high school, my junior and senior years, for a small privately owned community pharmacy. And through that, I really grew in my love of pharmacy, both the science part of it, but also the community part, particularly for a small community pharmacy, how engaged they were with the community. And that really spoke to me as someone who later on discovered that my leadership style is in that service, that servant leadership space. But as a young teenager, I just knew that I liked working somewhere where I could interact with the community, I could be engaged with them, and I could help and support. And so off to pharmacy school I went in the very cold Pittsburgh area, University of Pittsburgh, not, you know, knowing a thing about what it really was to choose a career. But I thought, this is what I want to do. This is what I love. And then very shortly after that, I realized maybe this isn't what I want to do. Maybe this is not how I want to spend the rest of my life. But I needed a job, and you got to pay for the degree that you got. And so I went to work for a pharmacy benefit management company at that time. I will say at the time that I went to college, my mother was not a college graduate. She had been working various jobs to support myself and my sister, our family, along with my stepfather. But around the time that I went to college, she also went back to college and decided that she was going to go into the technology field. And she became a developer by training and has gone on to work for Caltech, and she now works for UC Davis Health. But so around the time that I graduated and I was like, I don't really want to do pharmacy, but I need a job and I'm going to go work here and put these skills to work, she was coming out of her program and was very, very much a proponent of technology. She didn't care what job you were going to have. She just knew that you needed to be tech savvy and that it was going to be it's the wave, and no job, no life would be able to really be successful without some kind of tech background. And so she started to instill the things that she was learning both through her education as well as through the jobs that she took. So at that time, I was learning coding from her and different things around the tech space. And so I was working in a pharmacy benefit management company. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's a company that, say you go to the pharmacy and you go to pick up a prescription, they run your benefits through the system and it pops out, you're covered and here's your copay. There's a company on the other end of that calculation, making sure that that is accurate. And if there's a problem, that the pharmacy has someone to call and work through the technical components of making sure your benefits process well. And so I was doing that. And what would happen oftentimes was the companies that we were supporting would change their benefits. And so we would be waiting for our IT group to come and recode our systems or make technical changes in our system so that we could do our work accurately. And as many of you know, when you're waiting on IT, sometimes you have to wait a long time. And so I started just making myself available and saying, well, I think I can take a look at that. Again, using what my mom has been teaching me, the things that I've been researching on my own in that tech space. I think I can look at that. I think I can fix that coding error in our system. And we were on AS400, so I'm going to date myself a little bit, very old. But I started to step into those spaces where there was a need and that I had a skill set, not that I had learned in school or not that I had actually done on the job, but things that I had brought in from my own personal learning and development and make myself available to help the organization that I was with. And so I did that for several years, where to the point where I became the liaison for our department for the IT group. So whenever there were new things we needed to roll out or new customers where we needed to code new benefit packages, I would be that liaison and I would take on some of that work in support of the IT function. And so that was kind of like my entryway into IT, but not quite IT. So I still didn't have that title. And so after a few years, I decided, pharmacy is a 24/7, 365 kind of lifestyle. And I had a son and I decided I didn't want to work Christmas and I didn't want to work on Thanksgiving and on the weekends. And so I looked around and I said, where can I transition? And I thought, I've got this pharmacy background. I'm working with physicians all the time. Maybe I can transition into healthcare. And that's what I did. So I ended up working for several different types of healthcare companies, both insurance companies, as well as medical groups. I worked for Cardinal Health for several years, which is an international hospital and supply chain company. But I took my skills and I went to healthcare, and I did that for several years. But the thing that kept on coming up was this technology piece. Every job I had, there was something around technology, and there was a need for folks who knew it and didn't live in the IT shop. And so I continued to find myself doing roles that were IT adjacent. I did report analysis, data analysis. I managed that. We did population health things. We did online physician scorecards. Again, all these things in the technical space, but the healthcare space, and they were kind of blended together, but I still wasn't in the IT shop. And so I did that work for several years as well, and I really enjoyed it, and I was really happy where I was. I was in a management role for a company that is now called Optum, which I'm not sure if you all are familiar with. It seems like they're buying up everything in the healthcare space, but and I was managing a data analyst. I had a group of developers and system admins, and we were in the population health space, and I was really, really happy. And then UC Davis Health came a knock in. They were going through a Epic implementation. They were going to be doing a big bang, rolling out a bunch of Epic modules for their EHR. And they wanted me. They wanted me to come and join their IT shop. And I said, no. I said, nah, I had never been to Sacramento before. I don't know anything about Epic. I'm not interested. And the recruiter called me 3 times, and I said no 3 times. I just couldn't imagine this big shift, moving away from my family, taking my child somewhere, going into a higher ed system. I had no idea what that was about, an academic medical center. And it wasn't until the director for the clinical applications called me and explained why she wanted me that I decided to give them a shot. And she really keyed in on something that I think is a theme for my career, and it's leveraging. It's leveraging the things that I have, the skills that I have, to then move into a different career path, a different industry, whatever it might be. And the reason why they wanted me was because I had all of that clinical experience, and they were really struggling with connecting with their clinicians, with their nurses. They were really struggling with a particular system that I was familiar with on the healthcare side of it, and transitioning that to Epic. And so it was through that conversation that I started to think about, okay, Charron, this is what you do. You take what you have and you transition it into something else. You leverage it for that next role. And I ended up accepting the job to go to UC Davis Health and help them roll out their clinical applications. So I was there for, in that particular clinical applications area for about 4 years, I think. Yeah, 3 or 4 years. And so I started off doing things like rolling out Epic modules. I was a financial analyst SME for them, so that when they went live with their Epic financial modules, they were able to make sure that they did not then take a dip in their revenues, and we were able to coordinate that. And then I got bored and I said, you know what, I want to do something else. I'm really happy. I'm really comfortable. Now I know this Epic. I have like a gazillion Epic certifications because that's what I like to do. I like to go learn stuff. But I thought I can do more. And I was doing more, because not only was I an analyst, not only was I a developer, not only was I a sysadmin, I was also project managing a lot of my own projects. I was helping others. I was doing change management. I was facilitating work groups for leadership so that they could make decisions, because when you go from individual systems to these shared modules, there's a lot of compromise and things that you have to do. And I was doing that. And so I said, you know, if I'm already doing all of that, that sounds very much like a project manager. I should just become a project manager. And that's what I did. I became a clinical applications project manager, and I've led a lot of projects for them, and I saved them a lot of money. And I did a lot of stuff for Epic that I feel like they should pay me for, but that's a whole other story. And then I said, you know what? I've been playing it really safe my entire career up to this point. I've only worked in clinical spaces. I've really just gotten to this place where I'm safe, but I also don't have a pathway forward. I don't have that next step. I don't have that, if I want to become a manager, a spot for me to move here. And so I, again, said, let me leverage what I have. I manage really large budgets, really large projects that impact patients, that impact communities, that impact clinicians. Let's go do that on the enterprise application side of the house. And that's what I did. I went over there and I project managed for them and did a bunch of really wonderful things, including rolling out some policy and risk management software for them and protecting their EHR system. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I said, you know what, let's leverage what we've learned as a project manager and let's move into management. Because if I can manage folks indirectly, have no power over them, and get them to do the work that I need them to do for these projects and be successful, then I can do it in a direct reporting relationship. And what do you need to know as a manager? You need to know how to manage budgets. You need to know how to do change management. You need to know how to manage vendors. And those were a lot of the things that I had learned as a PM. And so I became a manager. And when you're a manager, just like all of our jobs, we all seem to wear multiple hats. We get hired to do this one job. And I was the manager for enterprise applications, and I had compliance, and I had financial apps, and a bunch of other stuff thrown in there underneath me. And one day my director said, can you stop by my office on Friday? And I said, yeah, I can do that. And I stopped by and she said, you know what? we had a switch. Our main campus, Davis, has decided they don't want to do our identity and access management anymore. And so we need someone to take over that team. And so I got that news on a Friday, and on Monday, I was the manager for identity and access management for an academic medical center. Knew nothing about identity and access management, knew nothing about security other than when I was under audit or I had to, you know, for my applications, I had to respond to something security wise, but nothing about the back end of how security actually works in an institution. But guess what? I had a lot of other skills. I like to learn things. I knew how to come up to speed really quickly on processes. I had the technical in my back pocket, so I could leverage that to get myself up to speed on what were the technical implications of what we were doing. Where were I, from my PM experience, I was able to say, what are the gaps we have here? What are the pain points? And really work with folks on governance and standing up kind of controls and things like that. And so I just approached it by leveraging what I already had in my pocket. And then I was able to apply it to overseeing this new area that I had no idea of. And so I did that for a couple of years. And then Berkeley came a knocking and they said, you know what, we have an associate CISO role in the security office, and we think you'd be great for it. And me again being like, I know nothing about security. Yes, I have taken identity and access management, but I don't know anything about security. I don't have any training. I don't have any certifications. Are you sure? And they said, yeah, we think you're exactly what we need because of all of the things that I had learned along my career journey, all the skills, all the different roles I had led, all of the leadership training that I've done and invested in, all of the focus on people, because we can't do anything without our people, all of that. And they said, we want you here and we know you can get up to speed on everything else. And so I made my transition to an R1 university completely away from healthcare. So talk about scary, no safety net, no hospital, no clinicians for me to talk to and feel like I knew what was going on. A totally different environment, you know, just our students and our faculty members and our researchers. But again, it's leveraging, it's a journey, it's building on what you do have, because you know you can be successful and trusting yourself that you can learn and get better. And so, like I said earlier, I've been here for about almost 2.5 years. I oversee security operations. I oversee security assessments. That's our consulting and risk management group. I oversee our identity and access management folks, our outreach and engagement, and our service management teams, as well as our in-house developers, because we do house a few of our own applications and systems. And, you know, when I got here, there were things that I knew, there were things that I didn't know, there were things that were similar to the academic medical center, but different. And again, I just leveraged it. When I'm working with faculty and researchers, it's very similar to working with clinicians. When I'm working with students, their people, it's very much like working with the staff and the medical students that that I dealt with before. And again, it's just looking inside and saying, what do I have that I can leverage, that I can bring forward, that I can use to help me be successful in this new space. And so that is my career journey. I feel like it's long and it's convoluted, but I think it just goes to show that there's not one way to get here. People always come to me and they're like, how do I get into security? And I said, well, let's start with where you are. What can you leverage? It might not be this big, huge mountain or this big, huge lift or going back to school. It might be that, but it might look different. And so looking at everybody's path as an individual, looking at it as everybody's coming and it's making our thought processes, making our decision making, making our community that much brighter, broader, more valuable, because we are all coming from these different paths and then we are meeting in this new place that we are. And so we can go to the next slide. So I want to talk about navigating spaces that weren't designed for us. Particularly to thrive in, not just to be in, but to thrive and be healthy. And so when we think about our workspaces, when we think about our organizations, I like to think of them as a mirror of our society. And most of you know that there are some things going on in our society that are not the best, particularly when you talk about people of color, women, things like that, marginalized communities. It's not really, the society is built on a structure that's not meant for us to be successful and to be safe. And so our organizations oftentimes mirror that. And so we need to make sure that, one, we're just aware of that this is not a place that was built for my support and my safety. And so that way, when you are navigating in it, you can navigate appropriately. And I would like to just talk about three things. I can talk about this area forever because it's a whole thing. But I want to talk about three things particularly around navigating these spaces is, I think, starting with your values. I think really looking at what are your values? What are the things that are important to you? What are the things that you stand on? Really having a strong foundation of what it is that you're about is, I think, critical when you're working your way through these organizations. For me, it's service. I am a people server. I am a servant leader. And because of that, it gives me, in these workspaces, when things are coming up that are unjust, that are inequitable, when people are being put in danger, when people are being traumatized, that is what brings up in me this desire to speak up, to make changes in our organizations, to advocate that we do things different, that we do things better. And that is because I have this value that I know this is me and this is what I stand on. And so then it shows itself. And then it hopefully makes that organization better for myself, but also for others who are there, others who are coming into the organization. So really spending some time with yourself and really understanding what you value, what you prioritize, what's important to you. The next one I would say is this idea of dimming yourself. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard this idea around bringing your whole self to work or bring your whole self to wherever you're going. And people will say, like, I don't know, is that safe? It could be not. It depends on where you work, where you're going, what you're doing. But I would encourage you to really think about where you're dimming yourself, where you're changing yourself to fit into that culture or that role or that department. And again, kind of pointing back to your values, is that in line with what is important to me, who I say I am at my core? And I'll give you an example, and I'm sure many of you have heard of this idea of code switching. Many people feel like they have to code switch. They have to talk different. They have to dress different. They have to look different in order to be able to be successful in the organizations and the roles that they're in. And one of the things that, for me, I grew up, I'm a late 70s baby. My parents are they moved here from the South, both of them with their family. So I'm not that far away from my Southern roots. And I grew up AAVE, Southern vernacular. And so I'm a y'all, ain't, that is just part of the way that I talk. When I was growing up, that is what I learned while I was in school learning other types of English vernaculars. And so that is how I speak in my day-to-day. And I decided for me, I am not going to code switch in the language that I use. Because for me, it's important that I show folks who grew up like me, or maybe in economically disadvantaged areas who have their own ways of talking and speaking, that you do not have to code switch your language in order to be successful. You can be who you are. People will understand you. They are smart out there. And you can move up and have the career and the life that you want and continue to be who you are and embrace who you are at your core. So I would just, again, encourage you, maybe you're not ready to bring your whole self there. Some of y'all might be, but think about where you're dimming yourself, where you're changing yourself, and think about, does that feel good to you? Does that really align? Is that really the reason why you're not being successful in that organization? Because 9 times out of 10, it's not that you said ain't, it's something else. And then I would say the third thing to really consider in this navigating these spaces is this idea of productivity. I think particularly with people of color, Black people, Indigenous people, Brown people, this idea of if we are productive, if we produce, if we are stars, then we will rise. And I think understanding that that is not exactly how it works is really important when you're navigating these spaces. Yes, you want to be productive. Yes, you want to be that person who can get the job done. But you also need to balance that with the fact that there is structural racism, that regardless of how successful you are, you still may not rise the way that you should rise. And so you want to be very careful that you're not burning yourself out, you're not compromising yourself, you're not compromising the things that you love and you care about in order to be this production machine. And with that, also, there is also this idea of being too successful and too productive in your organizations where you then become a threat. So you have to be aware that if you are going to be that superstar, that, you know, shining light, just make sure that you are keeping in your mind that that might cause others to be concerned about you, and not in a good way, and just be ready and prepared to have those conversations, to be able to make those shifts if you need to, because you're too good. And so that's always a very interesting one. People don't think about, I'm doing what's best for the organization. You know, I'm producing, I'm making sure that we get these things, these projects done. We're spending our money wisely. Why would that then become a problem? But it can be, again, because these spaces were not built for us to be successful and to remain healthy and whole. So just think about that, and just make sure your eyes are open, your ears are open, and you're aware that it could be taken other than good, productivity wise. I'm going to wrap up this section really quickly because, like I said before, I could talk about it forever because there's so much nuance to it, and everybody's experiences are different, and every organization, sometimes down to the departments, are different. But if you leave with nothing else, what I want you to leave with is, as you're navigating these spaces, they're built to make you question who you are, question your ability, question, are you worthy of moving up and being that thing and doing the stuff that you think you are? And what I would say is, yes, you are. Do not let these systems that are inherently damaging and traumatizing and wrong take away your feeling of you are worthy, you deserve it, you've worked hard for it, you are the superstar that you know that you are and that others know that you are. Just know that it's not you, it's the systems. And the next slide, please. So some things I wish someone would have told me before you come out of school and you think like, oh, this is it, I'm gonna just kill it and everything's gonna be wonderful. And I think if someone had just told me it doesn't get easier, it's not this like you struggled and you finally got the degree and now everything's gonna be like roses. It doesn't get easier. There's always going to be something or someone who is challenging you, challenging your right to be in the space that you're in, your right to have the career and the life that you desire. But that's okay because we're strong, we have community, and we have autonomy, and we can speak and think for ourselves, and we can choose what we allow to come into us to validate us or invalidate us. So I wish someone would have just given me like the heads up, like don't drop your shield just yet. There's more to come. I think the other thing that I wish someone would have told me, harkening back to what we just talked about, productivity. I've always been a person who's like, I want to work super hard. I'm a overachiever, do all the things, but that could be taken as, a negative, or that it could bring up fear or in other people who, would then be challenged by my success or by my work ethic. So I wish someone had kind of given me that heads up. So again, like I said, I could have had my eyes open, my ears open to hear and see when that was occurring, and then protect myself or make adjustments as needed. I think the other thing that I wish someone would have told me early on was that we don't do this in silo. I think a lot of times when we're in the situations, we're in the organizations, maybe we're the only one, the only woman, the only person of color, we start to think this is just us. I'm going through this and it's just me, but it's not. We are community. And if you just open up your mouth, if you just, say, hey, do you have a second to talk? You will quickly find out that there are others who are dealing with this and others who have come up with ideas and thoughts about how to navigate it and to rise above it. So you don't have to do it all by yourself, all alone. You might be the only one in your department, but there might be someone in a neighboring department, someone in the organization, someone in an organization similar to you. There are people out there and they're willing to help you. They're willing to share. They're willing to support you. And the last one is you don't got to stay. You can go where you are valued and you are embraced and you are supported. Our organizations will make us feel like this is as good as you're going to get and you should just be happy with what you got. And that is a lie. Again, the system is made to have us question ourselves, question our value, question our worth. You can find places where you are supported, where you are encouraged, where you are welcomed, and where you don't have to deal with those levels of racism and discrimination on a day-to-day basis that are causing you to not be healthy. And the next slide, please. And so with that, I want to open it up for any questions you have of me. And I know Chioma and Sharma are going to be, I believe, managing the Q&A for this part. So anything you have for me.
Wow, there's so much to unpack there, Sharon. Sharon, there's so much to unpack there. Wish we had half a day with you. I will defer to Sharma to see if there are any questions that come in. But how has your journey and professionally and personal informed your leadership style?
I think my journey, because so I've had really great managers and I have had not so great managers. So I definitely learned the things that I did not want to do from those folks who, were not the best. And then tried to take things from the folks who I thought were really killing it in the space, or doing a great job in the space. I think for me, I try to be as transparent as possible. And we all know once you hit like that supervision level and you continue to go up, there's always things where it's like you can't quite say it or you can't share it just yet. But I try to be as transparent as possible. So if I haven't gotten the specific do not share, I'm sharing with my folks. I'm making sure my managers and my teams know what's going on, because I remember when I was that person, I wanted to know. I wanted to have autonomy. I wanted to be able to make decisions about my career, my life choices, and I need information to do that. And so I try to make sure that I do that for my teams. The other thing that I learned was that leadership is a skill set. Particularly in technology, we like to think, if we take this really great SME in this area, they're the best developer, they're the best network person, and we make them the manager of that area, then they're going to fly and they're going to soar. And we've all seen that that is not necessarily true. And that is because leadership in and of itself, like a lot of other things, we're talking about project management, is a skill that you have got to invest in, that you've got to read about, that you've got to study and really hone that in order to be a good leader, to be a good manager. And I think that that's something that I grabbed onto really early on and said, this is what I need to do so that I am a good leader for the folks that I'm asking to follow me.
So for what advice would you give women, others that are entering the workforce or feel they're stuck?
I would say, look around. Look around. I recently had this conversation with someone who's in a role, there's nowhere else for them to go. And I said, again, what do you have? Leverage what you've got and open your eyes and see where you could pivot. It could be that you need to pivot to a different industry. Maybe you just need to pivot to a different department or a different title. But I would challenge you to say that you're not stuck. You always have autonomy. You always have the right to choose what is your next step and where you're going. And sometimes we just get stuck. We're in a box, we're living our day-to-day lives, we're working, and we can't see beyond what we see in front of us. And sometimes we just need to open our eyes. And that's what I had to do when I was working in clinical as a PM. I knew I wanted to go into management. There was no space for me at that particular organization, but I opened my eyes, I got broader, I let my scope expand, and I saw that there was a pathway in enterprise applications. And then that was my next step. So I would just encourage folks to open their eyes, maybe talk to somebody who has fresh eyes, who isn't in it with you, because they might be able to see some pathways to get you out of that feeling of being stuck.
Thank you. Shamar, you have some questions.
Yes, we do. So first question here, we have allies on the call as well. So one question that we have here is, what recommendations or suggestions can you offer for how a team can support and welcome someone new to a team, similar to when you joined new teams?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say making sure that you give space for their voice. Oftentimes when someone joins a new team, personalities are established, kind of who talks the most in the meetings is established, who maybe is the subject matter expert on a certain thing in the team. And when you have a new person join, really making space for their voice and the process of them integrating into it can make all the difference. So if you have someone coming in and someone else is an expert on something, but that person is like, I've got information that I want to share, make sure you make space for their voice and not cut them out because you've got a designated SME already established in your kind of team dynamics. I think the other thing is supporting each other in meetings. This is something I know people talk about it. I've heard it frequently, but it actually works, particularly around women and people of color. When you're in meetings with these people and you see them, maybe their ideas are being stolen or they're being ignored or they're being cut off, as a group, kind of like the buddy system, supporting each other and saying things like, say Chioma was in the middle of a thought and someone cut her off, and being the person so that she doesn't have to say it, saying, you know what, I would really like to hear the rest of what Chioma was saying. Let's let her finish before you start talking, things like that. And so that way people don't feel like when they're new or they are the only one in the meeting that they have to do it all on their own. They've got that support network and they know that others are going to speak up and help them, and then they can build their confidence. So I think those are really great ways for allies to help.
Great, thank you. And thank you for that question. Next one we have here is, when you're feeling unworthy in a workplace, what are some things that you do or tell yourself to turn those feelings around?
So I am a big proponent of updating your resume, like at least monthly. So the thing with that, it's really like it serves two purposes. One, it reminds you of all the great things that you've been doing. Like, you can't sit down and start thinking about what you've accomplished in that last month, be it project, personal, whatever it might be, and not start to feel yourself a little bit like, oh my gosh, like I am that person. Like, I don't know what they're seeing. I don't know what their problem is, but I am a star. And the second thing that it does is it makes sure that you're always ready. So when the opportunities come, you don't have to go hurry up and get your resume together and try to remember what you did 6 months ago that was critical, but now you done forgot about it because you worked on 5 other critical things since then. So you're always ready. And, I don't know who said it, but famous rapper, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. So.
I think, was that Jay-Z? Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I live by it, because you never know when opportunities are going to come. But for me, that's a really great way to give myself that confidence, because we're doing the stuff every day. We're shining, we're being stars. But again, the way the system is built, it can diminish that. And we start to then diminish it for ourselves. And so just by going back and looking and like, oh, I did do that. oh, yeah, I accomplished that. Oh, I took that course. Oh, I made that call and made that connection when other people thought we couldn't make that connection. Those are the things that make me personally remember who I am and what I can do, and that I am worthy to not only be in the role I am in, but wherever it is I'm trying to go.
Great. Thank you. And we have this one last question here, and then I'll pass it to you, Chioma, for some rapid fire questions. Last question here is, at what point did you decide it's time to move on? Even though you love your job and the pay isn't great, but when did you decide that it was just time to go?
So I will get personal with y'all. When I start to dread going into, and now it's really just rolling down the stairs and logging in because I'm remote most of the time, but when I start to dread the work that I do, because I love work so much, when I start to get that feeling of dreading it, like I don't even want to open my computer, I don't want to pull into the parking lot, that's when I start to say to myself, this might not be a good place for me. I might need to start thinking about what's my next step, where I'm going. The other thing is, I'm the type of person who, I get bored, I won't lie. I like to learn new things. I like to be challenged. And so if I'm in a role and I'm starting to feel like I'm just stagnant, I'm not growing, I'm not being challenged, I don't have the opportunity to learn new things. And it could be technical things, or it could be leadership skills, whatever it might be. But if I don't have that, then that's usually a signal to me that I need to start thinking about the next place. And I do just want to really quickly key in on the money thing. Really great book. I recommend it to everybody. It's geared towards women, but I think anybody should read it. It's called Smart Women Finish Rich. And the book is created specifically to talk about how women save towards their retirement based off of considerations like we tend to live longer and things like that. However, there is a huge chunk of that book that is devoted to how we go about valuing ourselves and what we bring to companies, and how that then translates into our confidence to advocate for our own money. And I credit that book with me making my first $100,000 or snagging my first $100,000 job, because if I hadn't read that book and I had not embraced those ideas and those concepts about I am valuable and what I bring to an organization is valuable, I would not have negotiated for that money. So I really recommend that to everybody.
Great. Thank you. Chioma, I'll pass it to you.
Charron, this has been wonderful. I wish we had more time to spend more time with you and glean from your wisdom, but you've dropped a lot of gems today, and that journey starts with self, like you said,
Yes.
identifying our values, being unapologetically yourself, right? And choosing to, it's also a choice, choosing to be yourself. And choosing to be yourself is getting to know yourself too, right? Because you'll be put into situations that you have to respond, that if you know yourself, your response comes differently. With that, we want to get to know you a little bit more. So what's your favorite movie?
I saw this question and I was like, is it supposed to be like my sophisticated adult self? But honestly, and this has been since I was a kid, Big Trouble in Little China. I love that movie.
Wow, I
I
have to
think it
watch
is
it.
it's camp, it's old, it's like from the 80s. So the quality, the special effects are not good, but I don't know. When I was a kid, I just thought that was the best movie ever.
That's wonderful. What about food? I love food.
I
So
love food too. Is sugar a food? I love no, I think I really right now I'm really, really loving Thai food. I'm really enjoying Thai food quite a bit.
and I know you've spent some time and you have family in this Southern California, LA area. You have any favorite restaurants?
Oh, I feel like it closed. It was a chain and I don't think they have them anymore, but I used to love the Elephant Bar. down in, I think it was like in,
Cerritos or something.
yeah, I used to
Yeah.
love that place. They had this shrimp bowl that I really liked, and they have really good drinks too, really pretty good drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying
That
to
was
think of
the spot
anything
back
else.
in the day.
Yeah, yeah. I've been up here for almost 12 years, I think now. So it's been a while since I spent a considerable amount of time there. But the last time we did visit, we got to, my partner is vegan. And so him and I went to visit Tabitha Brown's vegan restaurant. And it was okay.
That's good. That's good. I know you like to travel. What's on your bucket list, or where are you going next?
Well, we don't have any like plans this year because my son is graduating college. So this summer is going to be all about partying and celebrating him. But we do have a cruise. I've never been on a cruise before. And so we have a Virgin cruise planned for 2024, January 2024, to the Eastern Caribbean. And I am very excited about both the cruise aspect and all the different stops we're going to go to.
I think the final question, if you could have dinner with anybody, living or dead, who would that be?
Octavia Butler.
Really?
I absolutely love, as someone who dreams of writing, she is an inspiration, but also the way that she approached life and her value and what the things that she created should be valued at, I think if you ever have time to kind of go and look at how she approached that, some of the affirmations that she wrote herself about who she was going to be as a writer and the value that her works were going to be set at, I think it's really just a testament that, again, we get to decide and we get to set our foundational value so that when we're walking into these spaces, they don't get to set it for us. We get to say, this is my value.
Thank you so much, Charron.
Thank you. This was very, very fun. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And when you're in the Southland, we'd like to invite you to visit our campus.
Absolutely.
And we'll love to deep dive into your conversation and gain some more gems from you. And I believe we just I love that poem.
Yes.
That quote.
My favorite writer, like I mentioned, is Octavia E. Butler. And this is one of her quotes. All that you touch, you change, and all that you change changes you. And so again, this is this idea that who you are at your core kind of leads you through life, but we're evolving and we're changing, and the things that we do matter, and the people that we care for, be it through work or our personal lives, they matter, and they evolve us as well, and we evolve them. And so as we're struggling sometimes in our organizations and thinking, this place is never going to change, just know, even in a very minuscule way, the things that you are doing and the values that you're bringing forward, they are changing your organizations, and they're changing them for the better. So
thank you, Charron.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone that joined. We appreciate you. Please note Charron's information. She is great on LinkedIn. Reach out on Instagram. I usually find her on LinkedIn. Yes.
Feel free to reach out, connect. I love talking to people, love hearing where folks are in their journeys, because again, it's a tapestry and we need everybody's stories.
Exactly. And everybody matters, right? So guys, this is the first. It's a wrap. Please send me your feedback. And I would also like to know what topics you may want to explore, or even speakers in the future. And thank you guys for attending. And Charron, it's been a pleasure. And thanks to all our support team, Marla and her crew and students for making this happen. Thank you. Enjoy your day.